Did you know that Catholic Newman Centers have been on college campuses since the late 1800s? Today, there are over 2,000 Newman Centers across the United States and Canada and Australia. The movement was inspired by the writings of then Cardinal, now Saint, John Henry Newman. Newman Centers offer social activities, faith formation, and supportive community for Catholics attending public or secular universities and colleges. Welcome back to the podcast, my friends. Today, you're going to get an insider's perspective of the St. John Paul II Newman Center at the University of Illinois, Chicago, UIC campus. UIC is home to 33,000 students, a third of whom are Catholic. My guest today is Rebecca Siar, the director of campus ministries at UIC. Becca earned her bachelor's degree in biochemistry from Roanoke College in Virginia, a master's in theology from the University of Notre Dame, and a certificate in spiritual direction from the Christos Center for Spiritual Formation. She owns a photography business called Never a Dull Moment Photography and is a social media strategist for the Archdiocese of Chicago Vocations Office. Becca, welcome to Catholics on Campus.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Well, I have to ask, just to kind of get us started, how did you go from having an undergrad degree in biochemistry to working in campus ministry?
Yeah, it's a great question. I get asked it a lot. Day one going into college was like, I want to be a pharmacist. And I had my 4-year plan. I had all the classes I needed to take. That was my game plan. And I think that's the key word, my, my game plan. And so it was the end of my junior year when I was starting to really start practicing interviews for pharmacy school and thinking about potential internships. And it was kind of a deer in the headlights because the number one question I was getting asked is, okay, why do you want to be a pharmacist? And it was the first time I was being asked that question. And I froze and I said, I don't know. It was just, I had been in default mode. And I've always had spirituality. My faith has always been a core in my life, but I had never asked God that question. What does he want me to do? Rather than what do I want to do? And so I dove into prayer, and long story short is that he did reveal to me that he wanted me to follow him and to pursue a ministry, really a career in ministry. And so I said, okay, complete 180. And, I only had one more class. So I was like, why couldn't you have told me sooner? All those all-nighters of class and stuff. But it was really beautifully providential, just the timing as it always is. And so I finished, got my bachelor's in biochemistry, and then continued on to get my master's in theology. And here I am now. And I love my life. I love my job. I love what I do. It is absolutely abundantly clear this is exactly what God wanted me to do. And it's beautiful.
That's wonderful. Now, how long have you been at UIC's Newman Center?
Yeah, so I've been here since August 2017, so almost 9 years now, and I love it. It's the best job in the world. I might be biased saying that, but I tell people I get paid to pray and play. That's what I do in my role. I get paid to pray and play and be a spiritual mom to these students. And yeah, it's a beautiful job.
Yeah. Yeah. I've worked in higher ed long enough to know that no 2 days are the same. And yeah, so walk us through, what's a typical week like for you?
Yeah, another great question. Every day is different. Every day is different. The normal schedule is meetings. We'll have our staff tactical meetings where we're talking about a strategy, like who is setting up for this upcoming event, or is someone coming to visit that we should be aware of. So just talking practicals of day-to-day operations, and that's just good communication with our staff. Anything from that to daily sacramental life, like we pray a holy hour together as a staff every day, whether it's a morning or afternoon. Every single day we're praying together so that we can really be centered in this core value of divine intimacy, that this is at the core of what we do and why we do what we do. And then we have mass. Similarly, we have mass every day. So that's a big piece of it as well. A lot of it, though, is just conversations with students, checking in with students, walking around the Newman Center saying, hey, how's your day going? Or that's a really nice, awesome top. Where did you get it? And I just today had a question with the students. I complimented her on her top. And then we went on this rabbit hole conversation about how, because she got it at Costco. And she's like, Costco has the best clothing. And I was like, yeah, I know, right? So just silly conversations like that with students just to build relationships with them. And I had never met this student before, but now we have a connection because we love Costco clothing. And then again, day-to-day operations, like I gotta pay the bills, I gotta make sure the lights are gonna be on and that we have heat and all these little things. So it very much is like a motherly role, like how a mom has to cook and clean and get the family schedule together and prep meals and all this stuff. And that's what I do here in a variety of different ways with the students, for the students.
Yeah. Now, if you had to pick one thing that you just really love about your role, what would it be?
Oh, yeah. Goodness. I mean, I do love, I think we take for granted a lot just the ability to be able to pray every day and go to
Mm.
mass every day. Like, I could just walk down the hallway and go be in Jesus's presence, and that's rare for a lot of people who are not working in ministry. So it's a beautiful gift that is just very unique to this role, but it's something I think we can often take for granted. But truly, I think the biggest source of grace are the students and just those moments of, we call them kind of glory stories, right? These moments
Mhm.
of God's abundant and very clear presence and just ways that they're getting to encounter him, whether that's at a retreat or, in a conversation, or even students just coming up to thank you for something that you said that I sometimes forget that I even said, but for whatever reason, it touched their heart in that moment. So these like little encounter moments that they share with us, but that we get to see in real time, it's just really beautiful. And it just affirms that concept that God is alive and well, and he's working every single day, especially in our students here.
Thank you. And what is your biggest challenge that you've faced recently?
Oh man. Every day there's challenges. Virginia. Hmm. It's tough because I think the students are ready to encounter, but I think a lot of times they put up walls around their heart and are afraid to go there for whatever reason, whether it's attachment to certain sins or lifestyles or viewpoints or people, but also they know that they're searching for something. There's something that's not fulfilling them. And so they're searching for something. They don't necessarily know what that something is. They don't know how to ask the right questions of what that something is. So then they just spiral in seeking. And normally they're filling it with other things that are never going to fulfill them. So I think what's tough is seeing students in that spiral because we can't force them. Like, we can't force them to encounter Christ, right? Like, it's a very gentle, which is it's very much a clear indication of who God is, right? God is gentle. He doesn't force his self into anyone's lives, into anyone's hearts. He waits for that invitation to then come in. And so I think in the same way, sometimes I just want to shout the students, go seek God, right? But it's not. It's a very gentle approach that we're walking with, that we're not forcing them down a certain path. And so there is this interior feeling of desire, like, I want these students to encounter Christ. I can't force it. I have to be ready for them to be open to that encounter. And so it's this internal conflict of my heart of like, I really want you to encounter Christ, but I need you to be open to it. And so again, I can't force you. So all I can do is plant seeds and let the Holy Spirit do the rest.
Right. I also wonder, what are some of the trends that you're seeing now with Catholics on campus and with Newman Centers in general?
Yeah, it's interesting because talking with several of my colleagues across the country, we're at least experiencing an explosion of growth. We're experiencing record breaking mass attendance, retreats, OCIA. Like, we have about 14, 15 students in OCIA right now. Normally we have two. So it's Holy Spirit's doing something, right? And I've been asked this question a lot of why? Like, why now? Why are we seeing these crazy numbers? I think there's multiple reasons. Maybe there's not a particular one reason, but I think the Eucharistic Congress and the Eucharistic revival efforts that our bishops and, church leaders and lay leaders did, I think we're seeing the fruits of that now, that there was something planted in people's hearts, especially through the Eucharist, knowing that is the source and summit of our faith, that there was something planted then that now is piquing the curiosity of others because they were witnessing what was happening or what conversations were being had, that now they desire to learn for themselves, right? Especially some of those students in our OCIA program, they were seeking, like, a lot of them were not Catholic at all. And they were in this pursuit of truth. They realized what they were doing, what they were studying or worshiping, there was something off, like they were having their hearts restless. Like St. Augustine said, our hearts are restless until they rest in you. They were restless, and they said maybe someone along their road or something they read or saw or watched planted that seed of desire for them to then pursue that truth. And they come seeking. And it's not like we had to do any recruitment, major recruitment. They were seeking us out, but there was this feeling of there's got to be something more to this. And
Mm.
at some point in their life, the seed was planted in their hearts. And then they just said, okay, let's do this thing. Let's harvest it and let's let it grow. And so it was beautiful to witness that there is this seeking of truth, right? They know something is more. And now they're just asking the right questions of actually getting to that place of truth, the big T truth.
Have you found yourself having to change some of how you run things at the center with this explosion of people attending mass and, like you said, OCIA and all of
Yeah.
that?
Right. Yeah, definitely new approach. Our staff are overworked and underpaid. And so it is great to see this number of students coming in our doors, but now it's almost like we have to kind of take and run with the model that Jesus started, right? The spiritual multiplication model of it's not our responsibility as professionals in the ministry world to accompany and invest in and form disciples. Like we form disciples of a small number, just like Jesus did with the 12. But then he sent them out two by two to then disciple others, and then they discipled others, and it just grew. It's again the concept of spiritual multiplication. And so, certainly at our Newman Center, we're experiencing that now, where we had a small group of students that we really invested in, and now, maybe our staff led Bible studies with those students, but now those students are leading Bible studies. Those students are doing discipleship formation with those students. And those students are bringing more students into the Newman Center and giving tours and connecting and stuff. So it's that concept of, again, spiritual formation and spiritual multiplication, but also just authentic friendship and virtuous friendship and this desire that they have to want to share what they've encountered here with others and their peers and their roommates and stuff. They want to bring them here so that they can experience that truth, beauty, and goodness that they once experienced for the first time.
Right. So you mentioned authentic, virtuous friendships. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I love talking about this. And I gave a talk about this at our Newman Center this year, but it really is truly finding people who are pursuing the same thing that you are, which is God. And if you're walking along people who are pursuing that, then you're ultimately going to get drawn into that as well. It's the pursuit of virtue, but it's also seeing the good in the other person and desiring their good too. So you're not seeing another person as someone that is useful, like a person that you can use for whatever reason, any sort of pleasure or money or time or emotional gratification, all that. But if you truly see the good in the other person and you want their good and you want to do so pursuing the same thing, which is God. And it's hard to find. Like friendship is hard, especially as young adults and college students. We're very in transition a lot. Like we're transitory people. But at the same time, it's so important because that's what we're made for. We're made for community. We're made to be in communion with others. And we see that with Adam, like God created Eve because Adam wasn't meant to be alone. He was made to be in community. And even Jesus, right? Jesus could have done it himself by himself, but he didn't. He was surrounded by people all the time along this journey to live out his mission that he was given. But I think it's the same way for us. Like we're called to be in community with other people. And it takes the right person who actually pursues your good, who wants to uplift you and really help keep your core of your true identity as a beloved son or daughter strong and really prevent anything from destroying that core from getting close. It's almost like having like a wall or something around the core. Like the core is I'm a beloved son or a beloved daughter of God, which is your truth and how you were made and adopted into this family. But at the same time, you need people to kind of protect that core at all costs so that it doesn't get destroyed or altered or anything. So, yeah, it's a hard thing to do because it takes vulnerability, it takes trust, it takes peeling back layers of yourself and revealing parts of your heart to other people. But it's what we're made for. And it's beautiful when you find it.
Yeah. And how do you recommend that people maintain those relationships once they've formed them?
Yeah, it takes effort, right? Because a relationship is a two-way street. So you got to put in effort by reaching out to them and asking them to do stuff. But it also has to be received in the same way, you know? So if it's just one-sided, then that's not necessarily a friendship then. It's just like a one-sided relationship. It's something skewed, it's off. So it definitely takes effort, which is hard because I think a lot of times we have a tendency to just be lazy. You almost have to have this discernment of is it, and it's sometimes the easy way to just stay home and be lazy and do something independently versus putting in the effort to go reach out to someone or do something with them. But it's important because we have to have that portion of our heart, like, kind of that cup of our heart filled through that, like I say, communal love that we're all called to. And so it definitely takes effort and investment, and it takes vulnerability and trust too, because in order to go deeper in a friendship, you have to start maybe revealing things that maybe you're ashamed of and of your past or parts of your heart that maybe you're like, oh, if I share this with someone, maybe they'll judge me because I like this certain thing or I act a certain way or whatever. But no, it just like it's an invitation for someone to love you in that way unconditionally, which is ultimately like true virtuous friendship.
Tell us a little bit about how the Newman Center helps to build a sense of community for students.
Yeah, we try a lot of different things, like throwing spaghetti to the wall and seeing what sticks. But a lot of it is just creating an environment for virtuous friendships to be had. Like I said, we have daily sacramental life, so we have adoration. So getting to pray with people, like inviting someone to pray with you, that's a really good way to build a friendship. Maybe get a meal afterwards, going to mass with someone, getting to sit with someone and worship the Lord together. That's beautiful. But then we also have spaces here of study space, or we have a coffee shop inside of our Newman Center. And so that's a huge way to foster friendships. I mean, the coffee culture is just, there's cool people there and good conversations are had in coffee shops. And you have a mutual love of one thing, coffee or caffeine. Yeah. So those kind of spaces are really beautiful to just naturally bond and talk and find people of similar interests. We also have Bible studies, which are a great way to meet people, a small group of people similar in age to you that you can unpack scripture, our love story, and say, how is this related to me? Because it's our story too. It's the living word. So we see scriptures played out in our lives every single day. And so being able to make those connections with other people is beautiful. And it's a very vulnerable space to be able to grow in that way with people. So a lot of different opportunities, a lot of social events, retreats, mission trips. So different opportunities for people to just be with one another.
Yeah. Well, I love keeping up with some of the research around colleges and Catholics on campus and all of that. And I was reading this leadership roundtable survey that they just put out at the end of last year. And they found that young adults 18 to 29 were statistically the most engaged Catholics in the United States today. And
Mm.
yet, nearly a third of them say that they often think about leaving the church. So I'm wondering, in the conversations that you have with students, are you hearing some of them talk about that? And how do you respond?
Yeah, it's a great question. I certainly see the desire increasing for, like I said, truth and understanding of the faith and just wanting to learn more. I think maybe what's ruffling some feathers or where they're like, is this all in? Is honestly like there's so much polarization in our world. There's so much polarization in our church. There's like two camps, right? And maybe sometimes there's this like sense of I don't necessarily feel like I belong in any side. So then is there actually a place for me? And the answer is yes, because there's no like our political party should be Jesus, Jesus Christ, our faith, right? But for whatever reason, our world is kind of saying you got to choose a side. And that's not what Jesus did. Like he was in the middle. He loved both. And so yeah, maybe there's this feeling of they see what's happening, they see these arguments or people, church leaders, whatever you wanna call it, people within the church almost communicating, "You need to choose a side," and they're like, "But I don't wanna choose a side," so it's kind of like the messy family stuff, and they're like, "Well, maybe the easiest thing is just to remove myself," but it's like, "No, stay because Jesus wanted you to stay, like, this is why I'm Catholic, like, it's because of Jesus, right? Not because of any particular church leader, political leader, or whatever, like, I am Catholic because of Jesus." And so I think just encouraging them in that, then we get to sit in the messiness and work with that. Like, I mean, there's been messiness in our whole church history, like all salvation history, all church history. There's been messiness. There's nothing new, like nuanced about that. But we have to sit in it. Like, we can't just say, okay, the easy thing is just to remove ourselves from the situation. No, let's enter into it and work to the best of our ability to unite, maybe in little ways. There might be little ways that we can work for this unification of the family and heal the family. So maybe a few of them are just like, It's messy. I don't wanna get involved with that, but it's like, no, but it's beautiful. And the church in and of itself is perfect. People running it, maybe not so much. People in it, maybe not so much, but the church is beautiful and perfect, and so that's why we stay.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. I think about even when I came into the church in the mid-90s, the division was starting. A lot of my friends and colleagues that I knew had been Catholic, but they were leaving. And they were looking at me like, "Why are you going to become Catholic when all this stuff is happening?" And they're going down their list of things. And for me, it wasn't about that. It was about finding Jesus. And they kind of forgot that in that period of time. So I agree with you. I think that you don't have to choose sides. So
Mhm.
in that study, they also talk about almost 40%, I guess it was like 36% of people that said, well, why are you considering leaving? Almost 40% said that their understanding of Catholicism, there's a misalignment between church teachings and their own personal values. And
Mm,
this idea of personal values has become such a big thing that everyone has their own sense of truth. And that's where it's gotten very confusing with a lot of the kind of new mindset that folks are trying to be encouraged to have. So, again, how do you respond to that if you're hearing that amongst the students that you're working with?
yeah. We kinda wanna lead with a sense of love and understanding rather than judgment and condescension. And I think that's where some of our brothers and sisters in the Catholic world are causing more harm than good, if I can even say that, because they're almost leading with, "Well, how could you believe this? This isn't even true." And it's like, well, why don't we work to get to an understanding of where that person is coming from and why they believe what they believe? Because I think ultimately a lot of it comes from a misunderstanding of what the actual church teaches. Because 'cause I've had
Yeah.
conversations with students where they're like, "Well, I believe this," and I'm like, "Great, me too." And I'm Catholic and I'm all in, So I think there is a misunderstanding based off of kind of a miscatechesis. Is like almost we learned incorrectly. There's a lack of good catechesis growing up that we don't actually know what it is the church teaches, and therefore we assume that we don't agree with the church teaching, but we don't actually know what the church teaching is or why it is that way, and therefore we just again the easy way out is just no, thank you, that's not for me. So I think that's part of it. It's just not actually knowing what the church teaches. So with our students, again, we work with the place of just asking why or asking questions to get them to, because ultimately, if you're really preaching any sort of lack of truth, there's a cycle. You reveal it that it's like, no, wait, there's no truth here. You're just kind of teaching yourself and you're talking around things and you almost reveal it just the nature of general curiosity questions. Again, not so much like catch them in their lie or catch them, but not in a deceptive way, but in a way of just general curiosity of like, yeah, where are you coming from? What's at the root of this? And then they'll realize there actually is no foundation here. And then maybe there'll be a little bit more openness because of your general curiosity. So I think the biggest thing is people just don't actually know what the church teaches, or they think they do, but then they'll realize that no, it's actually not what we teach. And sometimes it's hard. The church teaching is hard. There are some things that we're going to have to accept just by pure faith, accept as truth, either because it's beyond our understanding, it transcends our understanding, or it's hard because it requires us to sacrifice something and give up something. And I mean, we see all the time in scripture, like Jesus would preach teaching and then people would walk away sad because they realize it's like, oh, that's too hard. And it's like, he wouldn't say it if he didn't desire it of us, but there are some teaching that are just hard to accept. And yet it's all rooted in love and desire for us, and God knows what he's doing. He knows what's gonna bring goodness out of us, but sometimes it's hard and we have to sacrifice some stuff, and I think that's what's difficult, is knowing that there's sacrifice involved.
Right, right. Well, and I wonder, you probably have many students at the Newman Center that are just on fire for the Lord. So, how do you help them learn to be good evangelists?
Yeah, a lot of formation, so we have different discipleship formation for them, so some of it's one-on-one with a member of our staff. We have focus missionaries here, so a lot of them will walk with students and provide some really good tools and resources of how to do this. You said yes, now what? So a lot of it's that. A lot of it's some paternal correction. Like if we see something happen that's not great, like we can have this vulnerable based conversation because we trust one another and say like, yeah, like I love you and I just want to share maybe there's a different way of doing this or a different approach that's more charitable and going to be more successful. So a lot of it's just observing what's happening, but then a little bit of individual coaching, group coaching, and we have some talk series and such that they can come and learn. And they're still growing. They're not perfect, but neither were the disciples. So it's just like a day by day basis of observation, but also accompaniment.
Sure. And how do you help them with becoming student leaders and using the God given talents in their leadership roles?
Yeah. So we really train our active student leaders to be on the lookout for students and natural gifts they have. So, like, I have an usher coordinator, and she's kind of on the lookout of like, okay, who's coming regularly to mass? Who may be sticking around after and having conversations with people, or is just a little bit more detail oriented that could be helpful for giving instructions or directions at mass. And then there's an invitation there saying, hey, I noticed that you come to daily mass every Monday and that you are pretty social and you're like talking to people after. Like, have you ever thought about being trained to be an usher? Or if we are talking with someone and realize that they're pretty strong in terms of their communication skill, maybe my lector coordinator is going to invite them to be a lector at Mass or vice versa. So a lot of it is just our observation and invitation into taking a leader role. But then there's other opportunities for them to even discover in their own hearts, like, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? And is there a place where I can plug in to allow those strengths to grow or maybe work towards those weaknesses a little bit more? So there's a ton of opportunities to serve in different leadership roles. And ultimately, we're just giving them the tools to be able to continue this ministry when they graduate, right? So they're not meant
Mm.
to stay at the Newman Center forever, nor do I want them to stay at the Newman Center forever. I'm like, please leave. I mean, I miss them, but I'm like, please leave. And all we're doing is giving them the tools to then be able to continue because discipleship is the rest of your life, right? And so we're giving them the tools to then be able to graduate and then live out that call to discipleship and ongoing formation and all this stuff for the rest of their life. And so we're just setting up for success to then go out to the parishes and be received by the parishes in such a way that then they can take what we've started and continue it on in the parishes.
And the parishes love having young adults serve, right? So
Yeah.
there's plenty of opportunity out there.
hmm
Now, you talked a lot about how you serve students. Do you also have programs for faculty and staff?
Yeah, so all of our masses, holy hours, all open to the staff. We have several staff members that do join us for mass, which is really cool and beautiful. And Ash Wednesdays when we see the most of them come through and to come receive. But yeah, we used to have a long time ago, we did a faculty Bible study. It hasn't happened in a while, but that was something we tried. And we're doing like kind of a faculty happy hour meet and greet just to build community with the faculty members. So it's been kind of try something, see if it works, and ultimately, it's like, this is their home too. They can come here. A lot of them come to our coffee shop and have meetings with other faculty members here at the coffee shop, so I do feel this sense of community and support from our faculty, and they're always welcome to come visit us.
Yeah. Now, this episode of the podcast is actually going to be airing closer to the end of the academic year. So, what advice do you have for graduating seniors as they leave the university environment?
Just being ready to go be a missionary disciple in the world, right? So take what you learned at the Newman Center, and a lot of students, it's hard for them because they have such a beautiful, good community here, and then they go out in the world, and then they have to seek it out, right? It's not at their fingertips because of nature of where they live or where they're working or studying. So I think you do have to make that initiative to find, I mean, communities out there. There are young adult ministries out there, and they're waiting for you to come. And so I think it's being very proactive and searching, whether it's like a Google search or going to your home parish and asking your pastor if they have anything there, or being on the lookout of other neighboring communities that you can join. But you have to be proactive to do it. And it's important because you can get in this cycle of just work home, work home, work home. And you're not actually going to be doing anything good for yourself if you just get in that cycle. Like, actually continuing to find that community, knowing it's such a crucial part of who we are as humans, and then doing the work to do it. And maybe it means driving a little extra to go to an event, or not necessarily just running home and unwinding. Unwinding's good, and we know ourselves and when we need to rest, but actually taking that step to integrate into a community is important.
for sure. Do you have any long-term goals that are in store for the Newman Center?
Ooh, I mean, I always wanna see this I mean, our place is bursting at the seams right now, so we need to grow. I don't know what that's gonna look like, maybe a capital campaign in the future, but yeah, we just need to grow and expand, and yet at the same time, like, yeah, I wanna continue seeing the student ownership grow, I wanna see the OCIA numbers grow, I wanna see mass getting so packed that it's standing room only. We certainly see it throughout the year, several days, random days, but yeah, to have that consistency of attendance, of people desiring something, and I can see it starting, so now it's like, "Okay, now we need to accommodate to the best of our ability so that it's not sardines in here."
Well, before we wrap up, I want to ask you 3 kind of personal questions. Let's call them just rapid fire, maybe. But the first one is, who is your favorite saint and why?
Ooh, great question. I have so many. I love Saint Teresa of Calcutta. She has been such a gift in my life. Her desire for people to be loving and joyful. It's something that I try to live out in my own life every single day, no matter who I encounter. Like it could be a grocery store clerk or an Uber driver or something. I wanna show them that they're loved, and it takes me filling my own spiritual cup so that it's naturally overflowing to be able to do that, and not to say I'm gonna be joyful all the time, because certainly hard things come, but, yeah, I just want people to feel seen, known, and loved, and I feel like she just had a gift of being able to do that, so I love her.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And what do you enjoy most about being Catholic?
The Eucharist. I don't know, I think I said it earlier, but it's the Eucharist. It's this absolute gift that we've been given for this intimacy with the Lord. I mean, this is my fuel station. Like, this is the fuel that I need to be able to go out and do what I do. Like, receiving Him, being in this relationship with Him in a very, very intimate way conforms my heart to His and allows me to love and serve and be this joyful being of showing people that they're loved and seen. So, yeah, it's very uniquely Catholic, right? But it is a huge gift that I think we take for granted, and I love it. I love it.
Yeah. My last question for you is, if you could give one message to every Catholic college student about staying faithful in college, what would it be?
I think maybe the message is just you're not alone. You don't have to be alone. You know, even if you're feeling this moment of loneliness, you don't have to be alone. There are other people out there that are pursuing holiness, that want to be your friend, that want to grow with you and walk with you on this journey, whether it's a professional like myself whose literal job is to do this, but there's also people that are your age that are seeking community and seeking something deeper. And so completely reject that lie that you're alone because it's not true. You are not alone. You are very loved. You're seen. And the Lord just wants to be with you and he wants to be in relationship with you. And he has so much in store for you and he wants to show it when you're ready to say yes.
That's beautiful. Well, Becca, it has been so great to have you on the Catholics on Campus podcast. And I really want to thank you for being a part of it. UIC is very fortunate to have you, as are the students at the Newman Center. So thank you for all of that.
Yeah, thank you again. This was fun. I love my job. I say it a lot, but I really do. It's a great job.
Yeah. Well, I want to invite everyone to like and share the Catholics on Campus podcast with your friends. And if you'd like to watch this interview, you can go to my YouTube channel, which is Knots Untied Coaching, all one word, and see the interview there if you haven't already started watching the podcast through YouTube. Mary, Untied of Knots, pray for us. God bless you, everyone. Have a great week.